Chapter 9, Neverseen. Okay, I figured you guys were going to be weird, Kev said, but I wasn't expecting this weird. Sophie knew she should probably elbow him, but all she could do was stare. The whole time she'd followed Mr. Forkle to the meeting point, a black pavilion hidden deep in the heart of the subterranean forest. She'd been imagining a group of pudgy, wrinkly elves who ate too many ruckleberries. Instead, they found she wasn't sure what. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Squall, Blur, Rate, and Granite, Mr. Forkle told him. I know the titles might seem strange, Squall said, but we've found it's easier to remember code names when they match the disguise. A heavy shiver obscured Squall's voice, and she was clearly a froster. She'd covered herself head to toe in a thick layer of foggy ice. Next to her stood Rate, or rather Rate's hovering silver cloak. He was a vanisher and had turned everything invisible except his clothes. His voice sounded distant and hollow as he told them, "Welcome to Aluvither." Aluvither. Sorry. Blur introduced himself next, explaining that he was a phaser and could break his body down to pass through walls. But with the right concentration, he could reform only partially. The effect reduced him to splotches of color and smudged lines and shadows. It would have been the craziest thing Sophie had ever seen if Granite hadn't been standing next to him. Granite explained that he consumed a chalky powder called endurite, since his ability as a telepath couldn't disguise him. The rare mineral caused his body to crystallize and harden, turning him into a talking, roughly carved statue. He sounded scratchy and gravelly as he said, "We're grateful to have all of you here, including you, Miss Vacker." "Della," she corrected. "Surely, if I have to call you those crazy code words, you can call me by my familiar name." Squall's face crackled as she smiled. "Della it is. We've been informed of your request to officially join our cause," Granite said. "And it's a tricky situation. We realize her husband has clearly shown remorse for what happened with Prentice, and that errors occurred on both sides of that situation. Still, there are some among our organization who might find you hard to trust, and we cannot damage our unity. But you're accepting us," Biona said, pointing to herself and Fitz. "You have proven yourselves," Great reminded her. I'm prepared to prove myself as well," Della promised. "I'll swear any oath, submit to any test. All I want is a chance to set the past right." The collective turned to each other, and Sophie was sure they were debating the matter telepathically. The council used the same trick, so no one could hear them argue. "We believe you," Mr. Forkle eventually said, "and are willing to give this arrangement a try. You can swear fealty tonight with the others." "What exactly does that mean?" Sophie asked, hoping there was no embarrassing ritual. "It's a simple process," Granite said. "It'll make more sense when you receive your packages. They'll be delivered to your rooms before your bedtime." "Wait, we have a bedtime?" Keith asked. "Yes, Mr. Sensen. Your curfew will be midnight, and that means lights out," Mr. Forkle said. "We also expect you to stay in your separate houses for the remainder of the night. Every morning, you'll meet for breakfast, then spend the rest of the day with your lessons." "What kinds of lessons?" Bion asked. "Exercises to better prepare you for the tasks ahead. You're all very talented, but you've only begun to hone your abilities. We will mentor you when we can, and when we're unavailable, your rooms have been stocked with books and assignments. Or we could, work on hunting down the Neverseen," Kiv suggested. "The Neverseen are not a pressing threat at the moment," Blur said. "You're kidding, right?" Kiv asked. "They're running around starting fires." "One fire," Granite corrected. "That you know of," Fix countered. "No, Mr. Vacker, one fire," Granite insisted. "We have eyes all over the world. If anything burns, we know about it. Just like we were there to extinguish the Florence fire. And now that Gethin has been moved, the Neverseen have disappeared without a trace. We must wait for them to reveal themselves before we take further action." "Unless they already did something," Sophie said, careful to keep her words vague. Mr. Forkle cocked his head. "I see you have all kinds of theories." Sophie backed away. "Are you reading my mind?" "Of course," he didn't sound sorry. "Does that mean I can poke around your head?" she countered. "By all means, be my guest." Sophie ignored his confident smile as she tries to open her mind to his thoughts, or Granite's thoughts, or wraiths, or blurs, or squalls. I made your telepathy unstoppable, Mr. Forkle said, but that doesn't mean it can't be deceived. Once you figure out what that means, you'll earn the right to hear what I'm thinking. That's not good enough, Sophie snapped. Just because I'm here doesn't give you the right to invade my privacy. Mr. Forkle started to argue, but Granite placed a rocky hand on his shoulder. If you maintain the rules of telepathy, Granite asked her, would that make you more comfortable? A little, Sophie mumbled. Then consider that our arrangement, and remember that the rules apply to you as well, Granite told her. I will still transmit to you on occasion, Mr. Forkle added, making Sophie jump as his voice filled her head. But I will not open my mind to your thoughts or hear your reply unless you transmit back to me. I hope this proves that we do consider your wants and concerns. Clearly, it's going to take time to adjust to our new working arrangement, but we are on the same side, even if our approaches differ. And since I already saw what you were thinking, let me go ahead and assure you that we are investigating the gnome situation, and we have seen no obvious signs of the Neverseen's involvement. The footprints orally mentioned, and by the way, you should use that imparter she gave you very sparingly, belong to two teenagers living nearby. Why are there teenagers living near Wildwood? Most likely they've been banished, but they were clearly not a threat to the gnomes, so you can let go of your conspiracy theories for the moment. Give us time to investigate properly. We know you two are having a secret conversation, Kip interrupted. Care to share with the rest of us? He was just clarifying something, Sophie said. Was it about Getten? Kip asked. You promised me to tell us about the interrogations. There isn't much time to tell, Mr. Forkle said. Each time I've tried to probe his mind, he was unresponsive. So do a memory break, Kif pressed. You misunderstand what I mean by unresponsive. His head currently appears to be empty. There are no thought processes, no dreams, no memories of any kind. I've never seen a defense like it, and I've yet to figure out how to counter it. Do you think it'd help if I tried to heal him? Sophie asked. That would be far too dangerous, Granite said. It's possible his goal is to lure you into his mind and trap you there. Isn't that what Finton tried to do during his healing? Sophie winced at the memory. If Fitz hadn't dragged her back to consciousness, Finton would have burned her alive without her even realizing. But you're taking the same risk when you search his mind, aren't you? She asked Mr. Forkle. I am far less valuable than you, as are we all. He's right, Squall agreed. And I'm sorry, but I must get back or someone will notice I'm missing. She removed the frosted purple-black crystal from her crackly cloak and leaped away in a flurry of snow. Now what was I saying? Mr. Forkle said, watching the snowflakes swirl. You were making excuses for why we can't find the Neverseen, Kif told him. Pretty lame ones, if you ask me. So you feel it's lame to keep Sophie safe? Granite asked. No, but it's lame to not use me, Kif argued. We know some of the Neverseen are in Ravagog. Give me a green crystal and I'll hunt them down. That is the most supremely absurd idea I've ever heard, Mr. Forkle told him. Sophie had to agree. King Dimitar had taken out her humongous goblin bodyguard with a single punch from his ape-like fist, and the ogre who had grabbed her during the attack on Mount Everest had literally dragged her through ice and stone. If they catch you, they'll kill you, she whispered. Well then, I guess it's a good thing breaking into places is my specialty, Keith told her. This isn't sneaking into a principal's office, Fitz said. I can handle it, Keith insisted. And now is the time to make our move. The Neverseen are scrambling. We caught Gethin, Brand's all charred and burned, and my mom, he cringed at the word, isn't as tough as she's pretending to be. She won't last long with the ogres. She needs gourmet dinners and fancy clothes. And she's horrible with bad smells. That may be, Mr. Forkle said, but you're forgetting that trespassing in ogre land violates our treaty. We cannot spark a war. Haven't they already voided the treaty by helping the Neverseen? Fitz asked. King Dimitar is claiming that was done by a band of ogre rebels. Blur explained. If they're acting without his permission, the council can't hold him responsible. Does the council honestly believe him? Sophie asked. Besides, aren't we rebels too? Dex added. If they caught Keith, wouldn't the council be able to give the same excuse? Why is everyone assuming I'm going to get caught? Keith asked. You guys are clearly forgetting how awesome I am. And yet you wore an ogre homing device for weeks with no inkling of its existence, Mr. Forkle reminded him. I'm not saying that to fault you, simply to help you realize what we're up against. The ogres have defenses far beyond our knowledge and experience. And as for your thoughts, Mr. Disney, you saw how King Dimitar reacted when Sophie attempted to read his mind. How do you think he'd react to someone invading his city? Sophie cringed at the reminder of how serious the consequences of that single act had been. She still hadn't shaken her doubts that it was related to the Wildwood Plague. We cannot be hasty with our efforts, Granite told them. We must be strategic. That doesn't mean we should waste time either, Keith argued. Do not fool yourself into believing you are the only one feeling impatient. Mr. Forkle warned him. Tell me, do you know the names of the dwarves we lost on Mount Everest? They were Ermit, Irha, and Kun, and Yegor is still in critical condition. They were dear friends, and we are anxious to avenge them. But that is not an excuse to take foolhardy actions. I know you've all spent months solving clues on your own and disobeying adults, Granite added. But you must remember we were the ones guiding you through that. We figured out a few things on our own, Fitz argued. Indeed, you did, Granite agreed, which is why we're glad to work with you. But we must be a team. That'd be easier to believe if you guys weren't keeping so many secrets, Sophie reminded them. The only secrets we keep are ours, Mr. Forkle said. What about the memories you stole from my head? Sophie had two blank spots in her mind, one from when she was 9 and had an allergic reaction to limbium, an elven substance Mr. Forkle must have given her for some reason. The other was from when she was 5 and Mr. Forkle triggered her telepathy. She could vaguely recall seeing a boy in elven clothes disappear, but she couldn't remember who he was. Those memories were mine, she said, and you took them and expect me to pretend it's not a big deal. Mr. Forkle let out another long sigh and turned to telepathically debate with the collective. As the silence stretched on, Sophie braced for a long UK's lecture. But when Mr. Forkle finally spoke, he said, Very well. In the interest of earning your trust, would you like your memory back?